Yo guys, I'm Tom. My most requested tutorial to date. Today I'm going to be sharing some rather fancy new techniques that I've been using to rapidly form large-scale cliff-like terrain. The main plugins I will be using are MetaBrushes and Arceon, both of which are unfortunately premium plugins, but are incredibly useful. I'll link their respective Patreon pages in the description, but if you want to try them out for free, they are available on public creative building servers such as the Bakery. Arceon requires the Fast Async World edit plugin, and MetaBrushes requires Fast Async Voxel Sniper, which also requires 4. We'll be using all of these tools to build our terrain. I'll start with a little demo. I've started with a diamond block canvas, which is about 200 by 200, with an arc cut from a radius 90 circle. To create a natural looking hilly base, I'm going to use Arceon's TerraGen command with simplex noise and a height of 7. Simplex noise uses some very clever maths to smooth points from the randomly generated vertices of a predetermined grid. Something like this, but a lot more complicated, and having the ability to expand into further mathematical dimensions. Spooky stuff for sure. Now I'm going to use the arc as a guideline to build up a cliff face. I use forward/up command to create a starting point, then set up my MetaBrush. I set the material to diamond blocks, which is just a placeholder for now, in order to get the shaping down. Then I make the brush size 8 and the brush type angled cliff. The angled cliff brush is a very powerful tool that creates steep, roughly cylindrical shapes. It also has a lot of customizable settings, but I tend to just stick with the defaults. Starting from the glass block, I begin placing angled cliffs along the arc with the arrow tool, varying the height of the cliff top gradually as I go. When I finish with that level, I fill in the bottom cap with further layers, then jump up and start a new level a few blocks back, which forms lots of ledges. You can add as many levels as you like in order to get the terrain to a suitable height. I also like to drop the brush size down to 5, and add these cool rocks that stick out from the ground. Next, with the brush size at 8 again, I switch to a different MetaBrush, the Meta Ball, which adds blobs that take the shape of the surrounding terrain. I use this brush to fill in any gaps, break up flat surfaces, and make the tops of the cliffs appear a bit more natural. Then for the final shaping touches, I turn to Voxel Sniper's classic blend ball, methodically going over the whole region until I'm happy with the result. Now for the fun part, the texturing. The first thing we need is some grass, so I use 4's angle masking to lay down some placeholder line wall blocks. I've had a lot of comments about what this syntax actually means, and the best way I could describe it is that the command reads as follows. Replace the angles between 0 and 50 degrees from the horizontal plane with line wall. And we don't really want grass to appear on top of itself in certain places, so I clean up most of it with a mask sphere brush, then run a command to replace the rest of these unwanted grass blocks with a dirt placeholder. After that, I apply Arceon's Voronoi texture. Voronoi? Voronoi?
In English, Voronoi. In French, Voronoi.
Voronoi. I like that. What was I saying? I found that a pattern size of 3 has been pretty suitable for a range of applications, but if you want to experiment with it, a bigger number generates a bigger pattern. Oh, and each time you run the command you get a different texture, so you can keep trying and undoing until you get something that you really like the look of. Remember simplex noise? We'll be using that maths again, but in a different form, to make smooth gradients in the terrain. I replace both the cracks and the original cliff faces with simplex noise patterns. For the cracks I'll be using a 3-block gradient, and for the rest a 5-block one. For the size of the pattern, I tend to pick a number slightly larger than the number of blocks in the gradient, multiplied by 2. You've probably seen brief glimpses of multicolored cliffs in my time-lapses, and that is what we're looking at right now. The reason I use wall placeholder blocks is because 4 puts the blocks in alphabetical order, not the order that you write them in the pattern list. Then we can replace each wall block with the block that we actually want. Here's the palette that I went for. I like to use darker blocks for the cracks in order to emphasize their shapes. And in my opinion, this method of texturing always ends up looking really clean. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see a video on choosing palettes. But we're not done. On top of the grass, I've thrown another simplex pattern of grass, ferns and air. Then I replace the lime wall placeholder with yet another simplex noise pattern, shown below. Then apply a smooth green gradient to that. You can see that I really love simplex noise, and that's because for terrain, it is just so much better than random percentage-based texturing. And as long as you use different pattern sizes, nothing is going to line up and look out of place. This kind of terrain is not complete without some trees, so I place some of my custom cherry trees down with the clipboard brush. Of course, you can do anything with this style of terrain. Structures, organics, giant crystals, waterfalls, and I'll show some examples of what I've been doing recently, later on in the video. But first, a quick intermission. My community Discord server is now open. This is a safe place where you can share your creations, get some building advice, find inspiration, and chat with me and other community members. Maybe even in a voice call. So if you didn't quite understand a certain command or step from my demo, consider popping over to my server, where I will be more than happy to discuss Minecraft building. In the future, I am looking into running build competitions with prizes, and map download giveaways on there too. The invite will be the first link in the description, and I'm really looking forward to meeting you guys there. Alright, let's look at some more interesting examples. Here's the background terrain that I used for my previous tutorial on structures. All blocks are really underutilized in building, but they seem to work really well when texturing the cracks. To bring the landscape together, I dotted it with various custom spruce and oak trees. And if we want to build for a totally different environment, here's something that I put together that used a lot more individual rocks, textured with yellows and browns to suit a desert region. I would recommend playing around with the brush and pattern sizes in order to sculpt the perfect landscape. Here's the process of the jungle terrain that I made with Abel for our Robotic Remains collab. You can see that we used a lot of layering in order to mirror a mountainous jungle region, and the palette that he thought up ended up really selling and highlighting the jungle colours. Finally, not quite a piece of terrain, but a few people have asked about it. In order to get the depth in on my monolith build, I first replaced all of the crack blocks touching air with air, which pushes them back a block. I also replaced the air adjacent to the magma blocks with red stained glass, in order to improve the gradient. And there we have it. Hopefully you can start to apply some of these techniques in your own building. Please consider dropping a like and a sub if you learned something new. Don't forget to check out my new Discord server. If you want to ask me a question, it's going to be a much more fluid conversation than the YouTube comment section. As always, thank you so much for watching until the end. Bye! And we don't really want glass. We don't want glass. Then Bunga, you come in, you say like, hello guys.